Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago, and to you, wherever you may be viewing us in the world today. It is Friday, the 24th of April. Welcome to Pep Talks in the Morning. My name is Felicia Hoda, your host for this program and the chairman of the Progressive Empowerment Party. I have to apologize for not being on air yesterday. I had some TNTech current issues, which unfortunately took me away from you guys. I missed you tremendously, but I'm very happy to be back here this morning with a brand new panel, a panel that I'm very excited to introduce. We have Natalia Moore, who is the chair of our youth arm. Good morning, Natalia.
Good morning, Felicia, and to everybody viewing us this morning. Thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure. And also joining us for her first time on the program is Hadassah Charles McLeod. Hadassah Charles McLeod,
Welcome.
who is co-chair of our PEP Women's Arm. Good morning, Hadassah.
Good morning, Felicia. How are you?
I am good. Trinidad and Tobago is
All right.
getting to see you for the first, well, and not really first time, but the first time on this program. So thank you very much for joining us today. Oh,
Oh,
please, if you are,
my pleasure. Thank
please,
you for having me.
if you are joining us in the program, just take a hot second to click share on the video as we build the audience for the discussion today. Now, we have been discussing COVID-19 from many aspects, many angles. We've brought on journalists, we've brought on experts in the field of agriculture, we've brought on um, self-employed people, we've brought on people who have lost employment. This morning, as you can see, we have the head of our PEP Youth and the head of our PEP Women's to join in a special discussion today, this Friday, on how COVID-19 is impacting the youth of the nation specifically, as well as young, um, youth, children, and women. I think it is very important that we dive into this particular discussion because we have, like I said, been exploring the topic from many angles, but it is important to show and discuss the way this virus and the lockdown is impacting some of the more vulnerable people in our society. Children, as we know, are very vulnerable to issues that may plague us. While we may think that they are not entrenched or they are home enjoying time away from school, this may be but enjoyable time for young people, as well as our women. Our women are also vulnerable in the sense of at the hands of abusers. If they're single parents, they may be experiencing specific difficulties, particularly with accessing money and the grants that we have so far discovered are very inaccessible. And today, I'm not sure who actually is or have received these grants. So, doing a deep dive into the youth, children, and women, let's start by bringing Natalia to this conversation. Natalia, you are a young person. You may have or might have been impacted by COVID-19. How can you say this lockdown period, this period of uncertainty, has impacted youth? And you can speak for yourself.
Well, Felicia, to be honest, I don't think I want to see my house anymore. And that is just, I really don't. I don't think I'm capable of seeing my house for this long. And it's been a really tiring process. You know, your sleep patterns change, everything changes for you to get back to some kind of normalcy in your life. You know, I can't go outside without wearing a mask. I I always have to hand sanitize my hands. It's been a lot to change for me personally. I know, you know, a lot of kids out there, they want to go out and socialize with other kids their own age, and that's probably even harder on them. um so now I'm stick behind a computer screen, which is weird for me because I like the outsides, and now it's like, okay, I don't know what I'm going to do. My brain is overthinking of activities to get myself involved in. I tried to go exercising, but that is to no avail. Right about now, it's really impacting me, which I think is not being inside this much. I don't think it's good for my mental health either. But I'm going to work through it because this is really hard times.
It is. And Hadassah, you are not in Trinidad right now, and I think it's very clear that I state that for the viewers, because you're going to be bringing us a special twist or a special approach to everything that we're discussing today, because you are Trinbagonian. However, you are experiencing this COVID-19 lockdown from the outside.
That is correct. That
Can
is
you tell
correct.
me how?
So, sure. So, I think I am fortunate that I am experiencing um, these special times here away from my country. Of course, it has been difficult in the sense that I miss my family, I miss my mother, I miss my grandmother, and I am very concerned for them that I can't be close to them and I can't be near them. And when there's crisis, you want to be close to the people that you love. But I
Definitely.
happened to be in the US. I was unable to come home because the borders are closed. Unfortunately, I am in a place where I am comfortable and things like that. Um, it has been a real experience because if somebody had told me a year ago that your life would change so drastically that you wouldn't be able to go out as you would like, that you have to wear a mask, that you have to wear gloves, that you have to be washing your hands constantly, I would not have believed them. But the world as we know it has changed, at least um, for now. Um, for me, what I learned in all of this is that um, the ability to earn um, on your own, independent of an employer, is so very important because here I am in a foreign country. I don't have any rights or access to any monetary grants or um, whatever they would be help giving their citizens. I don't have any access to that. But yet still I'm in a position where I can survive and I can still send money home for my mom. I have a landlord who is not waiving my rent. I still have to take care of my financial obligations back home in Trinidad. And I'm still able to do that. And it really has me wondering, how is it that people who are actually dependent on an employer who has a job and they live paycheck to paycheck, I am really wondering, how are these people surviving? Yeah.
Definitely. And I mean, you would have brought us to the first topic in the discussion this morning, which is how are young parents, young mothers, young families, single mothers, how are they surviving right now as it pertains to what's, measures that have been implemented during this period, which would see many people either being home, either being retrenched, either being temporarily laid off, either receiving a fraction of the salary they would have been receiving before, and dealing with this with the knowledge that the grants that we have provided here for Trinidad and Tobago are so difficult to access. One, uh, well, for some people, they are inaccessible at all. I mean, in Tobago, which has a population of approximately 60,000 people, we got 1,650 forms, which is, I mean, less than 10% of the population. And then there's the
Wow.
fact that you're receiving $1,500, and I will continue to say this until end of this virus, post the virus, $1,500 for some families is not a lot of money when you have to consider food, if you have a young child, pampers, milk, etc. And that, like I say, segues into that discussion because yes, we are all experiencing this virus. We're experiencing the impacts of lockdown. But as a single mother, as a child in a single parent family, it is a different experience for you. And it's hard you would have mentioned something yesterday when we were talking about the prices and the increased price of baby items. Somebody told me that Massy stores, the price of Pampers, was it baby milk has gone up. How are single parents and young children impacted financially, impacted economically, impacted by this virus? Are they, in a sense, more vulnerable to what is happening right now?
Well, Felicia, I am not a young parent, so I can't put that into perspective as much as I would like to. But going to the grocery is one thing, and when you have to go to the grocery, pick up food items and still pick up items for your child, I'm telling you, I went to the grocery and I spent over $500, and what I came out with wasn't value for money. It was more like I paid $500 and got 200 or even 150, $150 worth of items. And I noticed because, for a while I've lived in the United States myself, and the amount of stuff you get value for your money, hands down. So to come back home and I can actually make a comparison. Down here, it's like throwing a needle in a haystack and trying to find it after. It's something that is very hard. So you're telling me, right, $1,500 is going to cover that. It's going to cover that. Now, I don't know who's lying, but somebody clearly is. Because $1,500 cannot, under any circumstances, help you survive. And that's not even $1,500 every 2 weeks, Felicia. Hadasha, that is $1,500 every month. Am I hearing that correctly? That is impossible. And another thing, are they skimming on paper? Can they produce enough paper to give the entire population of Tobago enough forms to cover in all the unemployed people right about now? Don't they have a paper processing plant? What they have to do to get the paper? Because that is irresponsible. That is completely.
Well, the thing is, I saw on Facebook a couple days ago, somebody commented, why is this person who is driving Kia Sportage, why is this person who is driving this fancy car jumping out to get hampers and whatnot? And I thought it was a very ignorant statement because not because somebody looks like they are comfortable means that they are comfortable. So you may see somebody, they have a nice home, they have a nice car, their house is well furnished, etc., etc. But they are living paycheck to paycheck. So with the removal of that, they too now are on the breadline. They too would be in need of whatever grants the government is claiming, to be providing for citizens. So far more for persons who are in a disadvantaged position, far more for persons who have people who are depending on them. It may be sick and elderly parents, it may be young children. I really don't know how people are going to do it. $1,500 when there is no crisis is difficult to survive on. And what is very disheartening is that I'm hearing that grocery stores and people who are providing food and stuff like that, they are raising their prices. And I am not understanding why you are choosing to do that when people are dependent on food to live, just to survive. We're not talking about rent as yet. We're not talking about other needs. We're just simply talking about food so that people could survive this crisis. And the grocery stores are practicing price gouging, and it is really, really disheartening. And it really makes you wonder how people who are less fortunate, how are they making it through this?
It is.
Isn't it
And
ironic? Isn't it
Go ahead,
ironic
Natalia.
that most of the people that are suffering right about now will still say great is the PNM. They will still go down in their books, even though they know. And I'm not saying this to be against the government or anything, but this is your job. You were put there to serve the people of Trinidad and Tobago. I'm not bashing anybody. I'm just saying it's your obligation. It's your job. If somebody hand me the job of Prime Minister today or tomorrow, that's my job. That's my responsibility. At the end of the day, I get paid to do that. So if people don't understand this. If I'm working in the private sector and I don't do my job, guess who's getting fired? Me.
Hmm.
Indeed.
I have a
And
quote.
I mean,
Sorry.
read your quote, Hadassah.
Yeah, I just want to interject here. I found a quote by John Lynch about society's role in protecting the weak and the vulnerable, which they're becoming more and more visible in this crisis. And it says, we have a responsibility as a state to protect our most vulnerable citizens, our children, and I will interject women, seniors, people with disabilities. This is our moral obligation, but there is an economic justification too. We all pay when the basic needs of our citizens are unmet. And this is exactly what Philip says all the time. You cannot ignore a group of people who are disenfranchised, displaced, disadvantaged, and be surprised when they turn around because they are trying to survive and they rob you and they shoot you. Um, you cannot be surprised when that happens. If you are not providing for the basic needs of the people, then people are going to have to find a way to survive somehow.
Exactly, and you just perfectly segued us into the discussion of what happens while you're waiting on these grants. So what happens when
Yes,
the food card $550 runs out and you have a screaming baby who need milk, who
yes,
have to wear pampers? What happens during this time? And I brought up this analogy on Wednesday that when I was younger, I used to think that crime eventually, if there was enough gang warfare, they will kill out each other and we would soon be rid of criminals, not understanding as a young person
yeah,
then that criminals are constantly being bred through a failed society, through a society that does not have hope,
exactly,
and through a society that does not
exactly,
have jobs, through a society where they have fall through the system, fall through the cracks, and we have left them vulnerable. So these vulnerable people
exactly.
that our society has continued to perpetuate, what happens to them during this time? And I mean, we have not heard of any major cases of looting or any major robberies taking place right now. I'm not saying that it hasn't happened. I know there were a couple stores in Port of Spain that were looted, that were hit, because at the end of the day, you have, like you said, Hadassah, people have basic needs. Maslow's hierarchy of needs talk about the basic needs of human beings, particularly the vulnerable in our society. And earlier this week, Sunday, I believe, we had a video, sorry, of some youths being videotaping themselves bathing by sea lots, and Gary Griffith ended up pulling up on them. I think it was that same day or the day after. And
Hmm.
the first question you want to ask is, why are these youths out here breaking the COVID-19 stay home alert? Why are they out here parading around, and what are they doing with themselves? But then you have to ask the question, what can they do with themselves? What Natalia said
What
earlier,
can they do?
Exactly.
Yeah,
she's home, she's tired,
Exactly.
doing the same thing over and over. What about the youths who don't have internet and don't have access to online gaming and streaming Netflix
And Digital
and all
cut
of
their bill because they want their
and
money. I tell you, Digital sent me a message on my phone for me to pay my internet bill. I was like, Digital, where am I getting this amount of money from?
wow, yeah,
exactly. And I mean, all of this is happening at a time where everybody is being impacted. But I think a lot of
yes,
people are neglecting the fact that there are a lot of extra vulnerable people who may not have the luxury of saying, okay, I will withdraw money from my savings this month to cover
yeah,
my internet bill. Or I would withdraw money from my savings to go and make an extra week. of groceries. I remember when people were panic buying, and I saw this meme going around that, where are people getting this money to panic buy? I don't even have
Yes.
money to buy my items. And that is the truth and the reality for some of the
Hmm.
people, some of the vulnerable people that we have in our society. So we ask the question, what are they doing while they wait for the grants? Is it that they are going to can we expect robberies to increase? Do we now need to be extra vigilant as we go out? I mean, I listened to a report of a man, he went to do groceries and he took a taxi back, and the taxi driver, he forgot the groceries in the
Huh.
trunk of the taxi driver car. And he saw the driver reversing, thinking that he was coming to give him back his groceries. He actually reversed straight past him, made a U-turn, and left, stealing all of
Wow.
the man's groceries. I can imagine just how terrible that must have felt, knowing that you are buying a week, 2 weeks, a month worth of groceries to keep your family, knowing that money is so hard in this time, and you were just robbed. And I could imagine the anger that he felt, but then I could also imagine the desperation of this man that led him to rob the passenger of his groceries. And that is, again, a reality that we have to face. And what about those who can't access the grants? What about those who are told that they are not eligible to receive the grants? Like you just brought up somebody, the lady with the Kia Sportage, who you may look at her and say, why is she taking that? What about those that they say, no, you don't qualify for this grant? What becomes of them? Those people who look like they're doing well but living paycheck to paycheck, still have children to see about, still have a family that is depending on them. What becomes of these people?
Well, Felicia,
Well,
they fall
uh,
below the line.
mhm. Yeah, exactly. Because I asked the question, why is it that we're even quantifying people as qualified and not qualified? If it is that you were earning a salary and you are not earning that right now, then I think everybody should be entitled. That is what I think. And then the government, by some means, should find a way, in the next budget to recoup that money or whatever. But because that's what Canada is doing. Why it is we are saying that you don't qualify, whatever, whatever, whatever. It really is just, uh, it's really frustrating. It's really frustrating. And in
That,
times like these, you would hope. Hmm.
well, I
Is
was
it
going
that
to
they,
say, you're talking very progressive solutions there. You're talking budget and money recovery from to a government that right now withdrew $10 billion from a heritage and stabilization fund. That was their first move, right? That was in the first move was to go into our rainy day savings and withdraw that money and
Yes.
use it where we as citizens are not even sure how exactly it is being used. So you're talking future planning against an economy that is facing a drop in oil prices, against me where job cuts and again massive losses across the sector. What you're describing there seems like a very good idea for a government that actually has a plan, but our prime minister stood up in front of the nation on Monday and told us he has no plan. He asked us how to diversify the economy. So
that
what you
is
describe,
ridiculous.
I don't even think anywhere close to that right now. And like Natalia said, it is and was very ridiculous.
Yeah, well, there
You
just
know,
seems to be a general unwillingness unwillingness to even try
yes, but
or
there are
to
many
make an
solutions
effort.
out there. There are many solutions out there. We could dedicate this whole 2 hours to giving the government solutions and we'd still have more. At the end of the day, it's the government job to take the solutions and do the best that they can do for their citizens with it. I don't even mind they don't give Jack his jacket. You can take this idea, but it's for the betterment of the people. It's not for me, it's not for you, it's to benefit the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago. That's the bottom line. That's what the government of Trinidad and Tobago has to get. If it doesn't benefit your citizens, then it shouldn't be in parliament. It shouldn't be brought across to be made a law. It shouldn't be anything that doesn't benefit the citizens should not be. And that's it.
Yeah, but it seems that it's obvious that the citizens or the well-being of the people is not on the agenda. It is not a priority, and people are having, as in every situation, they're having to fend for themselves. Like when we had the massive floods in Trinidad, it was other citizens who came together. There was no response to speak of from the government. We are always the ones who have to rally around each other to make things happen to get us through crises. Because the government's response is non-existent.
It
Here's a thing, right? From the youth perspective, now all the young people are inside or they're going out to their minds doing nothing. Why can't we rally a youth initiative where we go out and we get these youths and we say, you know what, we're going to pay you to start an agricultural sector, or we're going to pay you to help cultivate the agri sector. But you don't do that, and you have these young people at home doing nothing. You can bring them into the agricultural fields, you can show them how things is done. Let them be the generation that helps bring this country into the future, or where we should have been. Because right now we look like we're so far back in the ages that we can't dig ourselves out of this hold. I'm serious. Because I would go, if you come up with that
Mm.
initiative, I would go on those fields. I would learn as much as there is possible, and I will plant, and I would happily smile because I'm feeding my nation. Is that so difficult?
exactly, Natalia. And right now, I mean, we just spoke about the youths that Gary Griffith had to put on the ground and put their hands behind their backs because
Hmm.
they were disobeying the COVID stay home order. And I keep thinking, obviously this points to some restlessness amongst the youth, which is expected. And I mean, let us not pretend that the wealthy people who can afford to go down the islands and who could afford to have pool parties in their enclosed gated communities, let's not pretend that they are not having their own little jam parties. The only thing is they have more access and they have better opportunities to do it secretly as opposed to these youths who
Yeah.
have none. I told myself to go and bathe in the water in sea lots, and anybody who passes there and you see what the water looks like, you see the rubbish, you see just how dirty it is to bathe there, even in the areas nearby. You're taking a kind of risk, and when I say you're taking a risk,
Hmm.
that's a risk. So
That's that's probably worse than COVID.
you you have to be
No.
absolutely bored out of your mind to go and even do that. And I have to say, I would rather that they were doing that than outside robbing somebody. I have to say that one. And it
Yeah.
because it is a reality. They could be out there robbing you, but they outside taking a bathe in the sea instead. But what I was gonna say about these youths though, those who don't have access to opportunities that more fortunate or well off societies can afford to have. Exactly what Natalia is saying. Why not get them interested in agriculture at the moment? I started at the beginning of this pandemic. After procrastinating for weeks and months, I finally decided to start my own home garden. Something that I am so very proud of now. I call my plants my babies because watching them grow every day and watering them and seeing seeing what putting love and care, I even sing to them sometimes. Seeing that happen, it makes me feel very proud.
Oh wow.
But it's also something that I think, like Natalia said, we can be instilling in the youths right now. We can be giving them that opportunity. They at this point in time, we should be encouraging the youths to be interested in agriculture. That's something that we have more or less shunned in this country. We have shunned it for reasons and I do not understand, since now this pandemic has shown us farmers as some of the most important, if not the most important people in the world, because they,
Yes.
yes, the doctors and the nurses keep us strong and they keep us safe with regards to our health, but farmers feed the nation. They, even
Yeah,
the
but not
doctors
even
Yes.
that. There are
been
medicinal plants that are also planted by these farmers. There are plants that are used in medicine. So, yeah, if not, they probably are the most important people right about now.
exactly. And
But again, you guys are speaking very progressively. And the thing about it is, we are not progressing. I don't think Trinidad and Tobago has moved forward since 1955. And if a country is not progressing, then needs are not highlighted that will show, okay, a job needs to be created here, then possibly a career, and then possibly an industry that will yield jobs, etc., etc., etc. We are not going anywhere to say that we can get from point A, okay, let the youths get into agriculture, etc. There is no vision. There's no vision. There is no plan. So it really sounds really nice and it sounds really wonderful. But until we get an administration that is passionate about the development of the people, of every individual citizen, then it really is just hopes and dreams.
it is. And on the topic of youth and children in particular, there's a video that I happened across on Facebook yesterday that depicted the life of a young child going to school
Hmm.
in the East Coast. I believe it was Manzanilla. And from that video, so many questions, so many concerns came up. And, talking about progressive and progression and being a progressive country, everything about that video showed how much we are not, how much we are clearly nowhere near to being where we would like to be. And I want to put it up because that video, it's going to segue into the next discussion that we're going to have on the youth, which is, the opportunities for people who live in poverty, the realities
Hmm.
of people who live in poverty. And for those on the outside who may not be very cognizant of what is happening here in Trinidad and Tobago, I saw a particular PNM activist denounce the fact that there are people living in poverty. He said, Laventil has basically been redeveloped since the PNM, and I mean, he showed specific businesses that they have but the reality, a lot of people continue to live below the poverty line, and children in particular, they live in these circumstances. And what you're going to see right now in the video may hurt and break your heart for some of you, but it is going to lead into the next discussion. We're going to show that video now.
Hi, good afternoon. Presently, I'm in Manic Street in Sunny Grande here, visiting a family home. This is the condition the family are living in. A 12 by 12 house, no door. I'll just show you the inside of the house. This is the inside of the house here. A stove. This is the wall here. That is the galvanized here. If you notice, no bed. Right? A family of 3. This is the mattress they had to sleep on. Now I'm raising this issue because presently the child going to the Manzanilla Government Primary School. The child is on the school feeding program. The child is on the school feeding program, but the principal of the school didn't see it fit to send down the child name to the ministry so the child could receive a temporary food card for going through this going through this pandemic. The father is a self-employed with a little hustle or jobs here and there to kind of bring in an income. And I'm calling on the relevant authority to look into this because this is not the only person this happening to. A lot of person within the Manzanilla area complaining about the principal of the Manzanilla Government Primary School. when it comes to sending down the names for the school feeding program, the principal send down who she want to send down, and a lot of parents complaining how the child is on the school feeding program and presently not receiving the temporary food card. I am calling on the ministry to look into this, look into the principal of the Manzanilla Government Primary School and try and source the listing of all the persons within the school who really need the food card.
Well,
Wow.
Very sad.
this
So
now
maybe
I am going to I'm going to say straight out that this is not about me taking up the issue of that Manzanilla teacher or principal or whatever. That I would leave that and the Ministry of Education to sort that out. However, I do want to raise the first issue, which is that that child or that family is clearly living in a serious case of poverty. And for those who may not understand what a shack is or looks like, that is the typical example of a shack that many families, believe it or not, live in Trinidad and Tobago. These people, they don't have toilets that flush that you are accustomed to. They use outhouses and latrines, things that people would like to think have been long phased out but still exist. And the reality is that a child lives there. A child that goes to school lives there. And the issue that the guy is raising is that the child obviously is fed through the school feeding program and has fallen under the radar with regards to receiving a food card. The father is self employed, so he is out of work at this point in time, and the situation for the family seems very dire. That's my first issue. Natalia, Hadassah, y'all can weigh in.
right, Felicia. Um, it's amazing because and not a lot of people know this, but I grew up in Laventille, so I've seen these things firsthand. My aunt, she lives in the far south, and one a while back we went to visit her, and I can tell you that is something like that is what she lives in. I don't want to
Hmm.
tell more, but poverty is real. Poverty is hell. There are many where I reside in Laventille. There are many people that do not see a meal, and they go day to day, and they have kids. That whole situation is just so, it goes to show how many people are actually suffering in Trinidad and Tobago. How many people are actually suffering. This is something that many people, they show on Facebook, and some people would comment on it and say, "Stop posting them up because you're not helping." But to me, I think it's kind of a awareness. It's to make people more aware that there are people that fall below the poverty line, because there is a poverty line, and then there's below that. There are people that fall below that line, that suffer, that I don't want to say suffer because that sounds a bit too harsh, but they struggle each and every day to put food on the table. And for that young boy or young girl that goes to school in Manzanilla, my heart goes out to you, because there were only 50 food cards given out or something like that. And
Hmm.
even
Some
if,
years, yeah.
right, what happens next? What is there going forward? How do we help these people? Every single person that is going through that struggle, the struggle is real. No, plain talk, bad manners. The struggle is real.
Hadassah.
The reality is that a lot of people in Trinidad are in denial about um, the state in which a lot of our citizens live in. It's either they're in denial or they want to be ignorant of it because they don't want to be bothered. And you would say, okay, well, we're supposed to be our brothers, keepers, are the neighbors helping, are people in the community helping. And that would be their first line of defense, or the first place that they should turn to get help would be people in the community, their friends, their family, etc. But then this is where the state has failed, because when they turn to the state for assistance, is a whole rigmarole, exhausting, frustrating process that they have to go through. Because first of all, you have to find if there are programs available to help you. When you find a program, you have to prove that you are in dire straits and that you need help. And then you have to fill out these ridiculous long forms. Then you have to qualify for it, and then who knows how long that takes. The state is so slow and sluggish in responding to situations like this that something has to give. Something has to give, and it is really very heartbreaking to see that one of us, because that they are Trinbagonians just like us, they are living in such poverty and such hell.
Indeed.
Hadassah, one thing, right, before we hand it over back to Felicia, what about those people that they have no way of getting these forms, and when they go to these offices and they ask for these forms, they have to pay some kind of money to get through. Yeah, they may fill the forms, but when they drop it in, they say, you're not going to
Yeah.
get it in two or a week or as soon as you want it. But if you give me a little $200 on the side, or you give me a little $500 on the side, I'll make sure you get it. And now make sure you get it in like 2-3 days. How do you expect people who are already going through this struggle to give you $500 to get something that they clearly deserve? Corruption in this country runs
Yeah.
as deep as local offices that are supposed to help these people. So that is impossible. It's impossible in the first place because you have to wait 2, 3, probably 4 weeks before you get it in the legal way. But it's even more impossible when they don't have the money to get it faster, to expedite it.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
like I said, it raises the first issue for me of the fact that not only do we have people or families living in abject poverty, but that we have children, young minds that are growing up in situations and circumstances like this. So the first thing, like I said, it raised to me was that issue of poverty with in respect to the people who cannot access the grants, cannot access the food cards that were or are supposed to be administered throughout the communities, probably using the school as channel. The man who did the video, he is calling on the principal of the Manzanilla school to not neglect this child and her family, who obviously, from what that video shows, is in a dire, they're in dire need of assistance. But then again, because this topic is about youth and children and women and how they're being impacted by this COVID-19, I went a step further. This is a child going to school. A child going to school. We all know right now students are home. Many of them are using e-learning facilities to access and still continue their studies. And is there anything in that video that gave you the hope or the indication that that child had access to or was using any learning facility?
Oh, not at all. But it goes right back to what you referenced earlier, Felicia, about Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Those people look like they just want food and shelter. They need their basic needs taken care of before they could even think about, oh, my child needs to learn online. That is probably such a far-fetched reality for them.
The
you
shelter
know.
part is
So
so real because if you,
you can't think about, yeah, you can't think about that if the basics are not being met.
the shelter
Sorry,
part is
Natalia, go
real
ahead.
because that's no problem at all. The shelter part is real because I was looking back at the video. You see, there is actually a big space where there is no galvanized, there is no protectant. And imagine a rainstorm, God forbid, was supposed to come down in Manzanilla, across Trinidad and Tobago, and that rain comes in that direction, it blows in the house, and imagine, and this is the worst case scenario we're imagining here, right? But even a little bit of rain, that that shed is going to be wet. Where they sleep is going to be wet. And if it happens that the worst case scenario, God forbid, that roof is going to blow off because it's not. Wow, wow, I'm lost for words.
They have no
Felicia.
door. You're even talking about the elements. They can't even protect themselves at night when they sleep. They have no door.
They don't. And I mean, I saw a picture yesterday circulating on social media, a drawing, a cartoon drawing. And I'm so sorry that I did not find it. I was just looking for it on my phone to send to the producer to put up on the screen. But I can describe it, and it is exactly what you were just describing, Hadassah. The images of a child peeking in, a child who is wearing tattered clothes, he's barefoot, disheveled, obviously depicting poverty and a poor child and a child who has no access to the nice things that a child coming from a well-to-do family may have. And he's peeking through the window with a notepad in his hand and a pencil in his hand. He's speaking through the window of a child who is sitting at a desk in front of a computer browsing an online e-learning facility. And when we said last week, when the Minister of Education spoke about putting e-learning classes online and putting examinations possibly online, in the event that we may get to that, the question that many people asked, which is, well, first we said, finally, it is about time that we moved to a first world solution, that we progress to the way other countries were and have been going for a long time. But again, we, like many things that we do in this country, put the cart before the horse. We say we're going to have online e-learning facilities, neglecting that there's a percentage of the population, like that child who we witness is living in that situation in the shack, who may not have access to the same opportunities that a child from another family may have. And because of this, yes, progressing to online e-learning facilities is great, but because of this, we are again leaving a percentage of our children behind. We did it when we
Mhm.
I have birds. I have a tree, and they love to upstairs in the morning. So if you're hearing them, I think we say good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to you two birds. But I mean, we had
Okay.
it with the system where we have a 20% of our children who go to prestige schools, leaving an 80% to fight up amongst the medium schools, or they call it, or the failed schools. And we left children behind in that aspect. We're leaving them behind now in terms of their, because we have so much poverty in this country. What we witness with that family, I mean, you got to think about it like, whoa, this family is doing really poorly. But think about the children who are impacted by the situation and the circumstances under which they live. Think about what that means for their education. Think about what it means for their future. Yes, there are those who fight despite their circumstances, despite their living conditions, and come out and become some of the biggest successes that we would ever meet in the country. And I applaud any child who is able to rise above a circumstance like what we just saw in that video. But then what about the child who cannot? What about the child who is from a family where there are other children, and that attention and that spread of resources has to spread across a bigger family? What about those children?
Hmm.
Definitely,
This
Felicia,
something.
definitely. Definitely, Felicia, definitely. You know, we, as you said, we put the cart before the horse, and we definitely skipped a step. So when a government official said this week that if we make any mistakes, we're going back to the dark ages, I think we'll go back even further than that. I think we're currently in the dark ages, and if we miss any steps right now, we're going back to the stone ages. We're going back to the caveman days because we are missing and skipping key steps to becoming a progressive, more diversified Trinidad and Tobago.
Hmm.
We are skipping steps because you cannot say you're going to put education online, and there are people that do not have a computer, there are people who do not have a laptop, do not have a smartphone, right? Working with a Nokia,
Hmm.
how are you going to help your child with a Nokia? And that is no offense to anybody who has a Nokia. I'm just saying, right? Technology has gone to the stage where you need a touchscreen, or you need a laptop, or you need a computer to do work. But what about the percentage of young children that do not have that opportunity? Because you're clearly skipping a step. You clearly did not take into consideration these people. These people didn't even cross your mind. They were not a thought. Because if they were a thought, you would say, hey, I think we need to get all the, not the MPs, even self, we need all the councillors in the area to go do a check, house to house. See how many children in your area does not or do have access to technology. When you do that count and you bring in the numbers, and it's the same thing with the food grants and every other thing, you do that. You make sure that they're doing their work because they're still getting paid. When you collect that information now, you see who has access to what and who doesn't. And then you bring a system across that either now is either you take the people that has access to internet and you allow them to learn that way, but the students that do not have access to internet, you you outsmart COVID-19 and you put some program into place so that they can still learn and still be in the same level of learning as the students with access to technology. It's simple.
Yeah, it's like Philip says all the time, hope and opportunity for all. If we had a government that was concerned about bringing everybody up to a certain level, at least making sure that there's water in the taps, that everybody can get a job, that everybody who wants to own a home could own a home. If we take care of the basics, then when these things happen, we are in a position to pivot more quickly. So we are talking about students learning online, but here it is that some people can't even think about that because they're basically struggling to survive. So it always comes back to the basics, taking care of the basic needs of the people. You can't go anywhere if you're ignoring that. I am here in the US, and my little niece, it was so easy for them to make the transition between not being in school and learning from home because the infrastructure was already in place. We didn't think about online learning before this crisis. So all my Trini friends who are teachers, everybody, they were scrambling like headless chickens to try to get this on the way so that they could still bring a lesson to their students from home. It was ridiculous. We never think about what could happen. We have always been a very reactive society, and when something happens, then we try to figure out, oh, okay, what are we going to do here? What are we going to do now? And more often than not, because there is no plan, there's no planning, there's no vision, the government makes a mess of it. And then people will say that you guys are awfully critical of the government. No, it's not that we want to be critical. We want our country to work. We want to see things get better. We want to see things actually benefit people and make sense, and people are happy and satisfied. But like Felicia said, you cannot put the cart before the horse. You can't do that.
Lemma McLeod Wilkinson, one of our two deputy political leaders and also co-chairing the youth with Hadassah, he put out an idea last week that, I had to say, again, if we had a government that had political will and the real motivation and drive to bring the standard of living for everybody, at least a basic level that they can survive and live comfortably. And she was saying, why didn't the government, or why can't the government partner with institutions like courts? I'm not in agreement with courts though, because by the time you repay something with courts, you would have paid back 3, 4, 5 times. But why not partner
Yes.
with a tech company to provide laptops at a very cheap loan rate for parents, maybe paying back $100 a month, if so much. This way you own the laptop. The last laptop program that we had under the UNC, or the People's Partnership Administration, I want to say it wasn't a bad idea. Giving laptops to students was definitely not a bad idea. But giving laptops to
It was a
students
step
with
in the right direction. Yes.
no way to track the laptops, allowing students to take them home and damage them because they didn't pay for it, so there's no real no drive to keep it in good condition. I know when I pay for
Yeah.
something, when I take my money and I buy something, I'm gonna treat that with as much care as I can because I know how much money I had to spend to get this. So why not allow parents the opportunity to be able to take, at least those who can't afford it, to be able to take out a small loan where you can pay monthly for the use of a child's laptop. Those obviously who can't afford it, give them the laptop on with the condition that if you return it in the condition that you were given the laptop, you don't pay anything. Of course, if you return it damaged or it's lost or it's stolen through negligence, you probably pay a fraction of the cost or you pay the full cost. Again, put in some kind of incentive for people, or put in the accountability so that they would treat it with care rather than the very haphazard way we just say, here, a laptop for you, a laptop for you, a laptop for you. And then
Yeah.
in the end, an entire initiative which could have been rolled out successfully was actually terribly, rolled out terribly. So why not offer that kind of lending facility for parents who may not be able to go and just purchase a laptop cash price off of the shelf? Why not partner with a tech company like TSTT and B Mobile to be able to offer hotspots for people in remote communities who don't have access to internet? Again, putting the horse before the cart. And I mean, yes, COVID-19 came and met us unexpected, but it also came and it showed, they say Christ disclosed the flaws in a society, and it showed clearly that
Yes.
we were not ready, the country,
We're
to
not ready.
progress in the way that we now. We get caught with our pants down. We're trying to instill and implement solutions that our technology and our society is just not ready to facilitate. We can't. There are children who will not have access to the same learning that a child going to a prestige school, a child coming from a well-to-do family will have. And these are the things that we have to look at, because a nation that leaves anybody behind is a nation that is not looking after the well-being of all its citizens.
Exactly.
It reminds me of a saying, something is as only as strong as its weakest link, and I can't remember the full thing, but it goes along.
The chain
A chain
is a
is
strong
only as
weakest link.
strong as its weakest link.
Yep,
Uh,
indeed. And that is
yeah,
Trinidad right now.
a government that can afford to leave its people behind is no government at all. I and I now said that statement, and I will live by that statement. A government who can afford to leave its people behind is no government at all.
Yeah.
I think
Indeed.
People don't know that they deserve better. People don't know that there is better out there. I'm telling you, I had to leave this country in order to find out that there is better.
To
There is
understand,
so
yeah.
much better. My brother, talking about education, my brother, he is literally learning from my mother's computer. And when they send, do you know the school that my brother goes to right now, they send at home packages, so the actual pamphlets and paper for him to, they mail it to their apartment. And that's
Yep.
amazing. So even if they don't have access to internet, they mail it to your house.
That
That
is
is a good idea. We
amazing.
can put that into practice here.
And we are at the 9 o'clock hour. It's actually 9:01 a.m. I told you, ladies, the time was going to fly and you weren't going to even realize it. So we are due for a break. Before we go to the break, I do want to raise the third and final question that video, when I saw it, that it raised for me, which is, I mean, we dealt with the fact that this child is living in poverty. So access to a food card, access to a grant is of utmost importance. It is actually critical based on what we would have seen in that video. This child is obviously being left behind in terms of education. There does not seem to be any facility to have the same access to learning as a child from a family that can afford to have internet and computers and electricity even. And believe it or not, that is still an issue for some people. Having
Mm-hmm.
a steady or even having any supply and
Constant supply
access
of
to.
electricity, yes.
But that video also raised a very important concern for me. And if you look at the living situation, actually, the guy who would have narrated the video, he pointed out the fact that it's a one-room house. It's a shack basically that has, he only saw one bed. There's a child living there,
Hmm.
there's a father living there. I'm going to assume that there may be a mother, there may not be. I'm not exactly sure the living situation, but it did raise the issue for me of abuse right now and
Hmm.
abuse of our children during this particular time. And I want to bring it to the forefront. I want to discuss that in depth because we have found that during stay home periods, during vacation, during periods like we are experiencing right now, where the nation is under quarantine, violence against children, sexual abuse, domestic violence is something that actually is and happens to be on the rise. And when you live in circumstances like what we just saw in that video, not pointing out to that specific family, but when you live in circumstances like that, the potential for these things to happen is greater. But we're going to discuss that more in depth after this very quick break. Please stay with us. We will be right back.
Antel is Trinidad's most reliable and technically experienced ICT company, providers of quality structured cabling, Cat6 data fiber, and power cables. We also stock cabling infrastructure basket-type cable trays for server rooms and data centers. Antel also installs and maintains video security systems including cameras, alarms, and electronic entrance locks for businesses and residential properties. Call Antel 674-1406 or 783-9250.
We are back and we are about to enter into the discussion about children. Like I said, this show is about youth, children, and women. And we are going to touch on that aspect of abuse that may be going on right now. We saw a video earlier on in this program of a child living in a situation where there seems to be only one room. This is a child with a father, a mother, we're assuming a family living in one home. And while that this is not the discussion is not about that particular child and her living situation and her living circumstances, but it does raise the question about, the potential for abuse to be happening right now in the country, given the fact that children are home with either caregivers or parents or people who may actually be their abusers. And when you live in situations like what we saw in that video, the potential for that to happen is actually much greater. And
Greater.
it is not, like I said, it is not about that particular child and her circumstance, but we have many people who are living like this. And when you look into situations and circumstances like that, you tend to find that abuse can be and is prevalent. Last week, Saturday, we had a case of a 75-year-old pensioner who
Hmm.
raped a young child, a young relative actually, and he appeared in the magistrate court on Monday for his crime. But there's that issue that many people are neglecting, which is during this period that abuse is something that can happen and is reports by the United States that I saw came out on the 10th of April that showed a jump in cases of, sexual assault of minors. This is something that I have not heard much about since we had this COVID-19 stay home. It is the role and the responsibility of the Ministry of Social Development to be looking into this. Yet, I'm not sure about you ladies, but I have not heard anything, and it is an issue that I think needs to be brought to the forefront. Hadassah.
Oh, well, I always have to default to um, if these programs are in place, if there is reprieve for women or children or persons in abusive situations, they are not visible. You don't have easy access to them and stuff like that. And it almost seems as though the system is set up to allow these things to continue to happen because if you call, there is no response. You may get somebody telling you, oh, there's no here. You have to call back. It's not treated like a priority. You know, so it's very disheartening as usual.
Natalia.
Disheartening is one way to put it. Um, Again, and I said this earlier, I'm going to say it again. I can sit down on a panel with women from the Progressive Empowerment Party for a 2-hour show, and we can give you solutions to these issues. And it's not that we want to show off anything, but it's because it's simple things that can help prevent these things. And we have to take into consideration COVID is stay at home, and staying at home can cause a very high amount of frustration, and that can lead into physical abuse. And then you're staying at home can also lead to sexual abuse. We do not treat these things like they should be treated. We have no clue how to deal with them, and we just let them carry on. It is so disheartening. It's the right word to hear about that 75-year-old who raped that young lady. How is that? It plays on your mental sometimes when you look and you hear about these situations, and you think, could we have stopped this? Is there anything
Couldn't have
that
been
we could have
avoided, yeah.
done to prevent this from happening? What is going to happen to her after? Is she going to get some kind of, mental help after? What is going to be her situation? What
The
But in
reality
what
Trinidad, we also
what
see.
next?
So sorry. Yeah, we also seem to have a pattern, a recurring pattern in Trinidad of not taking care of the vulnerable among us from the very start, from the facilities, the terrible facilities in which women give birth in Trinidad, to the terrible treatment that they get from the nurses, to no recourse if something was supposed to happen when they give birth, if the child is stillborn, etc., etc. There is no response in when you call because you're saying, okay, I'm being abused, or in the case of you may have a restraining order, there is no response whatsoever. I always remember my mom telling me the story of my aunt who lives in Canada, and she had just divorced from her husband, and it was an abusive relationship. And one night he came, banging on the door, and he was drunk, etc. And all she had to do was pick up the phone and call the police. And she said, this is the situation. I was in an abusive relationship. I have a restraining order. And for the next 3 months, she said every night she would look out the window and there would be a car patrolling her street. And she felt protected and she knew that she would be okay. We don't have anything in place to protect our women, to protect our children. We know these things happen and it's unfortunate, but when they happen, who do you turn to? Who do you call? Who is responding? And that is the issue there. The fact that you cannot get help even when you're in a situation like that.
To
Precisely. Yes,
right, and to bring this more to the forefront, there are even situations in Trinidad and Tobago where the police officers are literally coming and saying, well, we never heard this report, and they're hiding these reports. It was probably like a year ago, a woman reported abuse, and the police officers, they wipe it off their books. I'm not blaming the system, but I'm saying that the system obviously has failures. We are not ready to deal with this, and even if we get somebody capable of dealing with these issues, we have to put it into practice.
Yes.
I have to applaud Commissioner of Police Gary Griffith for the work that he has done in terms of beefing up the Child Protective Unit of the TTPS. However, as with crime, as with all of the other problems that plague our society, his job is to do the protect and serve part of law and order. But we also have policymakers, we have people in positions in government ministries, we have a Ministry of Social Development and Family Services that is responsible for stopping
Yes.
these things before the onset. Yes, it's good that we have swift action as it pertains to justice. This man raped the child on Saturday. On Monday, he was in the court. I hope that is not a case that's going to go on for 17 years, like we heard with a particular PEP member whose sister was raped in a police station, and that case stretched on for 17 years, even though they had the evidence, they had the victim, they had everything that needed to put an indictment on the perpetrator, yet it stretched on for 17 years. I'm glad that justice as it pertains to these kind of cases is even swifter now, thanks to the very hard work of the TTPS. However, like I said, there's a responsibility by the Ministry of Social Development and Family Services. There's a responsibility in terms of teachers and principals and schools to spot children who may be victims of abuse. There's a
Yes.
responsibility to make sure that these children, if you notice that they may be victims of abuse, to have a proper channel to send these issues to have somebody from the social care or social workers visiting the families of children who may be experiencing abuse. And I don't hear enough of that. Incest is a very big problem in Trinidad and Tobago. It's something that I do not hear people talking about enough, but it is very much prevalent. I remember when I went to school in primary school, there was a huge, it was the biggest story, in my school at the time, where a standard 5 pupil
Hmm.
was impregnated by her stepfather, and this is because she lived in a situation where at home her mom used to be out and the stepfather got her pregnant. And it is just one of thousands of other cases that we know of throughout Trinidad and Tobago, of cases of incest, rape, abuse of minors that I don't think we're doing a good enough job at addressing. And then I mean, there's the fact that we have the abuse happening, and people not stepping in to correct and remove the child from these situations. And then there's the fact that we have these kind of situations where people are forced to live with their abusers in very close, intimate quarters. I mean, look at that situation that we saw in that house. A child,
Yeah.
a young, particularly a young girl growing up, should not be sharing a bed with her brother or her uncle or her grandfather or her stepfather or even her father for that matter. But the reality is, because people live in such poverty, they don't have an opportunity. Something as living in having separate rooms is a luxury for some
It
people,
makes
you
a
know, and,
difference.
and
Yes. Yes.
and I don't think people understand that poverty, again, is the root of so many things. It's the root of crime. It is the
So
root
many
of
social ills.
abuse.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's like creating our own problems and then having to go back and correct these problems. And now that we are in this situation, we don't know how many children are being abused. Like I said, that article pointed out that during periods of vacation and during periods where you are stuck at home, abuse and statistics have proven that abuse tends to rise. This is where we need even more, even more dire is the need for a strong social development department, a strong developed social welfare department that is going to go in and find these at-risk children and give them the help that they need, give the women the help that they need, because yes, we have children being abused, but Hadassah, Natalia, what about women? What about domestic violence during a period like this?
Definitely. Definitely, because you have more people staying at home, so now you have this frustration building. I'm telling you because I feel the same exact frustration, but you feel this frustration. And there was a live video some time back where this lady was on this live video and she's saying, I'm so frustrated, and she's cussing and she's saying, I'm so frustrated, and so frustrated. I can't deal with it. I'm ready for these children to go back to school. I'm ready for things to go back to normal. I'm
Yeah.
frustrated.
There's a lot of frustration. Yeah.
I can't eat. My children can't eat what you want me to do. I am so frustrated. And she's going on and on about how frustrated she is. Right. And I'm saying, in cases as such, when you get frustrated, you do things that you wouldn't normally do, because now you have all these pressures coming down on you. You know, very it's a very bad situation that nobody wishes anybody should be in. But it's true, when you're at home, you're in a house, and you're not in a house by yourself, you're in a house with your common law husband, with your children, and your children, as that lady was saying, every minute they're coming, mommy, I want something to eat, auntie, I want something to eat, daddy, I want something to eat. Or it causes a friction, it causes this buildup of frustration. And when you can't provide, and when everything just comes crashing down on you, you flip. And it's serious. It's the truth of the matter, whether we acknowledge it or not.
Yeah. And again, there seems to be this blanket of mystery in terms of what are these women supposed to do. Are there social workers who are assigned to them? Are they removed from these situations? Can they be removed, or is it that there is no way for the government to put them, so they end up back in these situations, back in the vicious cycle? Really and truly, what systems do we have in place for them to escape these situations when they happen?
You know what I think it
That is the
is?
question.
You know what I think it is? I think it's a taboo. Our society is built on taboos, and people probably won't like that, but it's the truth. Our society is built on taboos. Look at a young teenage girl going to family planning. just for an example, that is a taboo, right? A young lady getting abused, a young woman getting abused, that is a taboo. You watch her, you whisper to your friend, oh, she's getting abused, but you won't take it upon yourself to get into that situation, because the next thought that runs through your head is, that's none of my business. What is going to happen to me if I involve myself into that situation? Our society, sad to say, but it's built on taboos. Everything is seen as a big taboo, as something that I shouldn't mess with, is something that I shouldn't get myself involved in, it's something that people shouldn't see me going through, right? You get abused, your eye is black and blue, but you wear shades and you cover it up, or you put on eye makeup, because people aren't supposed to see your vulnerability, because in that moment you are vulnerable. You are vulnerable to people's
Yeah.
criticism, and that is so wrong. And the next thing is, we do not have appropriate measures in place to deal with these situations. What is happening to these people? And it comes back to mental health. After I get abused, after this is happening to me, we don't treat
Yeah.
mental health as a disease. We treat it as something like, oh, she has mental health, she just needs to sit down on the couch and talk to a psychiatrist. We don't treat it as a disease that needs curing. We treat it as a taboo. Oh, she has mental issues because her boyfriend cuff her up or something like that. She just needs to talk to somebody and sit down on their couch. And because we are afraid for people to see us going by a psychiatrist and saying, hey, we actually need help, and we need to go through this process, and we need to probably go on some antidepressants or take some kind of healing trip, do some kind of meditation, because we're afraid of what people might say is even worse than what people are actually saying, because that is harming us. It's harming our mental health. It is harming us in the worst way possible. Somebody once told me it's better to treat yourself than to have somebody saying stuff behind your back. So yeah, you know what? Me, I'll go treat myself. I like my inner peace. No matter what you say about me, I'm all about inner peace. But once I'm happy with myself.
It's true. We don't talk about these things enough. We have forfeited our responsibilities as just human beings in terms of looking out for each other. But I also believe that you talk about taboos, I think a society can be trained. And when I say that, like long time, you'd always have these PSAs playing about what do you like, stranger danger, and things like that. I think there needs to be constantly these PSAs playing about what women are supposed to do in the event of domestic violence, what children are supposed to do if they're being abused, and not just have it playing, but they're actually being systems set up for them to call. I can't stress it. I can't stress it enough. We may not do our part. People might not want to talk about it. But if there is a system, if there is something that people can turn to, it would help a lot. It will go a long way in terms of getting women out of these situations, making sure that they don't reoccur, protecting our vulnerable children. But that is it. We don't have anything for them to turn to. Or not enough, I should say. Not enough system.
And just to summarize, everything and bring together what both you and Natalia are discussing, we really do, as Shinbigonians, need to let go of some of our hypocritical ways of thinking. I mean, we would, like Natalia say, shun people who may be experiencing issues, and not think, that, or not want to put ourselves in their situation, not understanding that. And that's something I have to thank my mom for teaching me. And I think it's something that is lacking a lot in our society right now, which is the basic ability to put yourself in somebody's shoes. And
Health issues,
I
correct.
understand what you are going through. I have never lived in a situation of such desperate poverty. I have never had to share a one bedroom house with a father or uncle or common law, my mother's boyfriend or stepfather or whatever. I've never been in that situation. However, I am able to put myself in that situation. I'm able to try and understand what it may be like for that child, what it may be like for that father right now who is who is a self-employed man who has to provide for his family, who obviously is not like, living in the best of circumstances and is now being impacted by, you know, now being impacted by the stay-home order, not able to earn an income, having to wait on a grant from the government, having to put myself in the situation of of a young woman, a young mother, a young single person who may be abused by a boyfriend or a husband who is unemployed right now, who is taking out his frustration. I am not, and I have never been exposed to these kind of situations that I'm discussing here. But being able to put yourself in the situation, being able to imagine what life must be like, is something that I think we need to do more as Trinbagonians. I'll never forget that
Definitely.
woman who was found stealing in massive stores, and people light her up on Facebook, stealing is wrong, etc., etc. And I
Hmm.
absolutely agree, stealing is wrong. But I was one of the people who saw it. I hope when that woman was caught, the manager of that store gave her a bag of groceries and sent her on her way, because yeah, it's not about
Yeah.
rewarding, and it's not about encouraging bad behavior, but it's understanding what it may have taken for that woman to go to such
For
a
her to
degree,
get to
to
that
such
point. Exactly. Exactly.
a flat screen TV. She wasn't stealing a cellular phone. She was stealing food. And to put yourself in a situation as trying to understand what another person may be going through is lacking a lot right now in Trinidad and Tobago. And we need to let go of our hypocrisies, because we have no idea what we would do if we were reduced to such lengths. I watch videos of people, middle income families, middle way, what do you call them?
Hmm.
What do you call those people?
Middle
Middle
class.
income, yeah, right. Well, that was just slipping. Middle class families. I watch people who come from middle class families looting stores during a
Hmm.
period of during COVID-19, during a period where they had to study. I have children who need to eat. I need to do something. We
Hmm.
have no idea what we are capable of under the right circumstances. There's a
Exactly.
statement, there go I, but for
But
the
for the
grace
grace
of
of
God.
God,
And a
yes.
lot of
Exactly.
us need to be grateful that we have access to the
Yeah.
opportunities that we do. Also understanding that there are many people who do not. And then Hadassah, what
True.
you were saying, and of social development, social welfare, social ministry, a period like now where ministry like that is of utmost importance. It's critical that these ministries do have access to communities, at-risk communities, communities where poverty is extremely high, where you
Hmm.
know children may be in circumstances that can render them vulnerable to abuse, etc. And I mean, all of this that we're talking about here hinges on a government that understands its responsibility to the citizens, understand that the well-being of the citizens, from children to young children to young women to young men, because I want to say this, abuse is not just against children and women.
Yes.
Men are abused, and I think we make
Yes.
light of the of men being abused in Trinidad and Tobago, and we laugh at
Yes.
it and we say, "One is a panty
Felicia,
murder."
that is another taboo. That is another
Yes.
taboo.
It's
We
true.
make we make fun, we make fun of people. I even saw a video yesterday of suicide. A man who committed suicide because he saw a video of his girlfriend cheating on him, and the kind of comments that people responded, that's what you will kill yourself
Very
for.
insensitive. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
We things that, like Natalia said, are very taboo but are very real in Trinidad and Tobago, and we
Yeah.
have in many lost our humanity if we even had it. And it's something that we need to
True.
perpetuate our society. We also need to call on these government agencies who have a responsibility to the citizens to investigate these cases, domestic abuse against men, investigate it because men can be victims too. Children, they need your help the most. They're very vulnerable. Women, I mean, it doesn't need to be stated that women need your protection as well. A paper saying that you have
Hmm.
a restraining order against a man who is abusing you is not going to stop that said man from coming into your house and abusing you further.
Exactly.
We These are the things, and as a responsible government, these are the things that they should be looking at. And I'm yet to hear during this COVID-19 period of anything tangible or meaningful being done
Can
to address
exactly.
these at-risk people, to address these vulnerable people in our society.
Exactly. And another thing that I want to highlight, Felicia, not to cut you across, is that the
So,
just the presence of hope or the opportunity, like people say, to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. It's that and all is even missing because we don't have basic infrastructure and basic mechanisms in place. And I'll give you an example. I am here in the US. I was able, along with my cousin, to start a business. And we did not have to leave the house. Everything was done. We did the name search online, we did the incorporation online, we applied for the bank account for the company online, and and it's because the system is set up in a way that allows you to do these things. We are able, in a situation where people are not earning or have lost income, we are in a position to actually take care of ourselves and bring in extra income. And that, I believe, is something that is totally missing in Trinidad and Tobago. And I think that is why young people are so frustrated because, like Philip said, you're always relegated to the same roles and to the same jobs because nothing is being expanded, nothing is progressing. You cannot say, well, I want to do this and I want to have a business online and I want to live my life a certain way. There is no infrastructure to support you. If you have to go and do something as basic as opening a bank account, that I think is necessary, that everybody should have. They want all this information from you. Your grandmother Brasa is this, that, and the other, whatever, just to open a bank account. And it is something that is necessary. So they're saying, okay, it has become more difficult to do these things because of illegal activity and drug trade and whatnot and whatnot and whatnot. Instead of they actually deal with the problem, deal with the root of the issue, which is we need to eliminate the illegal activity or whatnot so that they can make banking easier for citizens. No, that is the other way around. The citizens have to suffer, and the people committing white collar crime get to go about their merry business. And even to set up a
precisely.
business, I had to, you know,
And
go ahead.
what you just said there, Hadassah, is so real. We had in 2018 a man go into a automotive dealer and buy a Range Rover. A man who is a known fisherman who was killed as a fisherman who
Hmm.
many people knew as a community leader, and we all know community leader in this country is usually a euphemism for drug dealer slash gang leader.
Mhm.
He was able to go into a car dealership and buy a Range Rover. So don't tell me that you're putting FIU
Cash, Felicia, cash. Don't
and
worry.
Yeah,
regulations, putting regulations into to stop crime, which only stifles the person who is actually trying to do things the legitimate way. Because those
yes,
who are doing things legitimately have their connections at the top. You think, come
exactly.
on, the people who run in drugs and guns in this country, you think that they have to study about filling out any form to open a bank account? Come on.
Of
Come
course
on.
not. Of course not. Of
It's
course
hi,
not, but then
Mr.
that
So and
makes the
so. Thank you for
country,
seeing you at the bank again.
yeah, it makes the country unlivable, unlivable. And then the young people, they don't want to return. I always wonder what are the numbers of young people who have had the opportunity to study in Canada or the UK or in France or in the United States. How many of them actually return home?
My
Because
mother
once you have
asked me
had a
why I came
taste
back
of
home.
life abroad, you don't want to come back, especially to not in terms of you have the opportunity to excel academically, but you also can follow your passions. If you're passionate about the environment and reducing your carbon footprint and things like that, if you're passionate about things like that, you can actually get involved. And these young minds, we lose them year after year after year, and they go and they make these countries better, and Trinidad is just left stuck in a vicious cycle,
That is a
because
very
we're
good
not
question.
creating an environment that is conducive to allowing people to reach their full potential or creating opportunities for them.
That is so
That's
true.
I lost two of my best friends, and not lost as in lost them, but they left to
Yeah,
study abroad. And when they left with the hopes of coming back, I knew even while they were saying that I would not see them the way I used to see them
again.
again, because I
Yes,
knew from the time that they went up there and they experienced life and hope and opportunity. One of my best friends, she's a doctor of mechanical engineering, and she's pursuing her dream of literally building new technology that we will not see and use for the next 5 and 10 years. She's actually working on that
wow,
now. If she were here in Trinidad and
wow,
Tobago, do you think that she would have that opportunity? My other best friend,
no,
she's an interior designer in the States, and every time she posts a video of a house that she would have remodeled, I feel so proud, because I mean, I don't
wow,
think she would have had that opportunity for that career again were she here in Trinidad and Tobago. We have people, so many bright and intelligent people in this country who
yes,
talk about going to work in the public sector and being stifled by these old dinosaurs
and
who want to
yeah,
keep their ideas down,
yeah,
because the ideas involve the sector or the area that they're working progressing in ways that would probably eliminate corruption. And these young people, they feel stifled. They feel as if, what am I
stifled,
studying in university for? If it is when I come back, I can't even apply what I'm learning. What about the fact that these same people, my same two best friends, they own owns her own home. She's the same exact
hmm,
age with me. I had to fight up with a bank to even get a mortgage. One of them, she's
yeah,
renting. She has her own apartment in New York. And I mean, looking back here right now in Trinidad and Tobago, and she says, rent is very high, but rent in comparison to the salary that she's earning as an interior designer,
yes,
she can still live. Rent here, by the time you
hmm,
pay rent, you have to fight up to either pay your light bill, your phone bill, or your water bill. One of the two have to go. Two of the three have to go, because you're left with no money if you're
yes,
renting, which is the real concern for lots of people here right now as you. You can't
yeah,
own your own home. That is such a big thing, and I wanted to talk about that. I'm glad that the topic actually led to that direction. Young people right now, and Natalia, you can jump in on this. I am sure I remember when I was younger, I had dreams of owning my own home by the time I was 20. At 18 years old in the States, the average 18-year-old graduates out of high school and and gets a job, and either starts to work towards owning their own home or rents their own apartment, etc. That is very difficult to do right here in Trinidad and Tobago. If you
yes,
It
don't have a
is,
it
friend,
is.
no, it is very,
if you
very,
don't have a
very
friend
difficult. I
to
can
rent with
attest to
you,
that.
if you don't have a friend to rent with you or to put up half of the deposit with you, chances are you'll be living at home for a really long time. And it's past 9:30. I did want to open the lines for anybody who wanted to call in at this moment. We continue the discussion, but it's TGIF. Call in with your calls, anything you want to say, birthday shout out, 769-4590. The lines are open. Even if we continue this discussion, for young people, owning your own home is a pie in the sky dream here in Trinidad
It
and
is.
Tobago. It is so difficult.
It
Just
is.
like the grants. that you have to apply for. Applying for an HDC home. I did that and I don't even know what became of my form. Yet you have homes that are there
Mhm.
growing razor grass, people breaking into them, and you're wondering, when am I ever going to own a home? And we have so many unoccupied homes that are being used as political
Yeah,
tools coming at the same time. They're going to release, here, 500 people take a HGC home. Why couldn't you have given me within this in the last 4 years that you were in office?
exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So, and I have to say this again. My mother, she currently lives in the United States of America, and she asked me, Natalia, why did you come back home? Why did you come back home where here you have a lot of opportunities? You can go back to college, you can get a degree in whatever you want because the world is your the world the
Oyster.
something is your something the world is
Oyster.
your oyster. Yes, right? And she was
I love
telling me
how
that
we
she
are
was
each filling in. I love how we are each filling in the words that we miss. I forgot middle class, so
yes.
Hadassah remembered. I think you forgot chain. I remember that. No, you forgot oyster, and Hadassah was able to. I love this. I love the synergy that we're having
Oh
this
wow.
morning.
Right. And she told me that. And I'm like, and I told myself I'm coming back home because, I want to make a difference in my country. But now I'm thinking back on it. I'm wondering to myself, was my decision the correct decision? Because now I'm stuck in a
Yeah.
country where I cannot, even if I want to own my own home by 25, it is impossible to do with these mortgages and, the interest that the bank adds onto it. It is impossible to do to open my own business. I am someone who is very innovative. And if I tell you I want to open a business and I'm going to take these steps to do it, doing that in Trinidad and Tobago, it is hard, it is hard, it is hard. They do not allow you leeway. And when I say leeway, it's
Yeah, they
like
don't
when we in the
entertain your dreams at all.
the Progressive Empowerment Party says that, they would give a certain amount of leeway to new upcoming small businesses so that they can be able to develop themselves. Right? I can't exactly remember what it is, and I think Felicia can help me out there, but they give a certain leeway for us to help young people, young entrepreneurs to develop their business, their small businesses, so they can grow forward. I can't do that here. If I try to do that here, is I'll set a run around, and if I can't get it by this ministry, I have to go somewhere else, and then it's a set of
Yeah.
documents and a set of paperwork, and ask my business open to want to tax me already. How is that even possible? I have not made any money as yet. I'm still trying to clear the capital that I put in to start this business. How is it possible for a young person to survive? There are no opportunities. There's nothing to motivate you. This society does not work for young people at all. And then you wonder and then
No,
you
it
ask
doesn't.
yourself, how do they fall behind? And how do they end up in gang activities? And how do they end up in criminal activities? And you ask yourself that, but then it's simple. Really, there are no other avenues. There are no other avenues. You can't be an interior designer. And if you do become an interior designer, whose house are you going to design? Because the only places that you're gonna actually get value for the work that you're going to put in is in those big houses wherever they're located, because the small man cannot afford to call an interior designer and say, hey, come change up the whole inside of my house and I'll pay you to do it. They can't afford to do that. You want to become a technician, you can't afford to do that even now, even if you wanted to go into the oil field, because Petrochem is no longer there. You want to do something that is not a doctor, a lawyer, a nurse, you can't. And even nurses are getting laid off. Didn't they just fire a set of nurses because of some certification error or something like that? And now we actually need nurses, but we don't have the amount that we need, right? We can have
Yeah.
booming industries. We can have a booming tourism industry. We can have a booming agricultural industry. We can have a booming technical industry that brings Trinidad and Tobago into the future. China, of all places, they have this saying that, they when they plant a seed, they plant it for 10 years in advance. We don't do that here. We don't look for the future. We don't look at the
No.
future and look at things that could make us as better as a country, as a nation. And anytime you start to criticize anybody for not doing what they should have done because it's their responsibility and their job, you have people jumping on your backs saying, you don't know better. How could you do better? You know, best example I could give you, when you're telling people that it's time to make a change, time to give something a chance, right? Give the Progressive Empowerment Party a chance, for example, right? And then they come on your back and saying, if they did this, you're going to do that too. And I make this example all the time. I tell people, if you're hiring 2 contractors to fix your house, right? And every minute they're not doing the work right, your roof leaking, you're having a plumbing issue, something going wrong, but you pay them millions of dollars to fix your house. And I come and tell you, I just finished a certificate. I have these certificates here. I can do the job correctly and I could fix your house. They would rather give it back to contractors who having plumbing issues and roof leakages than to give me, the small man, a chance to fix your house. And that's the truth
Yeah,
of
because
our
who's you?
society.
That's the analogy of our society. And I just missed a call. I apologize. It was a WhatsApp call. Please feel free to call me back and join in on the discussion if you want to. We have just about under 15 minutes left on the program. And exactly what Natalia is saying is so true. We have, and I never understand it because, I mean, some people say that we like abuse as Chinese. I don't want to believe that because I know me personally. No, I have to speak for myself personally. If I am going to an
Yeah.
institution, if I'm hiring somebody to do something for me and they are repeatedly failing at it, I am not going to continue with them. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and over and expecting different results. I'm
A
not going
different
to
result.
know that the
Yeah.
same man who mess up the plumbing the first, second, and third time, I'm not going to hire him for a fourth time. And this is what I don't get with Trinbagonians. I don't get that inclination to keep taking bad treatment. But then I have to applaud those who, like us here in the PP, like those 67% of people who stayed away from the polls come local government election time, who are fed up, who are saying, you know what, I have seen both sides of this coin. I have seen that it's the same thing no matter how I flip it. I don't want this coin anymore. I'm looking for a brand new penny. No, seriously, I am not going to accept this anymore. For those people who are standing up in their droves, and I have to say, I'm seeing more of it happening. I'm seeing more people who are willing to say, this is not what a government should look like. And there's
Should be.
no,
Yeah.
when people come and tell me there's no perfect government, no, there is no perfect government, but there are examples of good leadership all over the globe, and we should always aim for the best.
Yeah.
We shouldn't compare and measure ourselves against the worst. And when I say compare ourselves to the best, I watched the St. Lucian government yesterday, this week actually, boast 2 very successful advancements in terms of progress. One, the government took a 75% cut in salaries,
75%.
which I
Yes.
Yes, congrats.
tremendously applaud them for. St. Lucia is a
Applaud. That's
population of
amazing.
less than 200,000 people, and they are showing us up in ways that we, as the so-called leaders of the Caribbean, cannot even begin to follow. They also eliminated completely their COVID-19 cases. They had 15 people who were infected. The 15 have now recovered. And I hope, and I really, I hope that they can continue on that path and keep themselves COVID-19 free. Again, 200,000 people as compared to our 1.4 million. I have to salute them. But these are the countries that we should be looking to, whether they're smaller than us, whether they're more advanced than us. These are the countries and these are the best practices that we as a nation should want to strive towards. We should want a leadership that is willing to come in front of the citizens and say, you know what? Y'all are suffering during these economic times. Let's stand in solidarity with you and suffer too. Because you know
Yes.
why? These are the people that can afford to
Stand
do
in
it.
solidarity
Those
where?
Colin Imbert and his fancy cars and Alrari and his fancy suits with his $1 million rent for one and
Puppeteer.
three Alexandra Place and Hines with his Minister Hines with his palace in Laventille. All of these people, Keith Rowley with his homes, plural homes that can afford to take a pay cut, that can afford to go without a salary for 2, 3, 4 months because we have been paying them. You live a tax-free status. You live a life where you get you can bring in your vehicles free. You have housing allowance. You just raised your pension 2 years ago because the rest of the country we didn't have enough money for them, but we had enough for you. You can afford to do this. Why not show the country that you can lead by example? This is the kind of leadership that Trinidad and Tobago has never had. But this is also the kind of leadership that we need to start demanding of our people. We need to start of our leaders,
Yeah.
sorry. We need to start seeing and wanting better for ourselves. We're not supposed to be letting little St. Lucia upstage us. Our government should have been leading that charge.
And I want to
But
be the first
Felicia,
one. I want to be the
go ahead,
first one to say
Natalia.
this. And I want to call, as a young person who's living through this COVID-19 times, I want to call on the government to take a pay cut. I want you to take a pay cut because there are people who are suffering, who are literally struggling, who need that pay cut. Okay? They need you to take a pay cut because you work for a lot more money than they will be seeing anytime soon. So Natalia Moore, I'm calling for that pay cut. If you're watching this right now, I'm calling for that pay cut. I'm waiting to see it next week. We'll see it. Don't worry.
Guys, and
I stand with you too, Natalia.
I'm just realizing that we have the wrong number up, producer. It's 7694590, not 60. So whoever is getting all of my pep talks calls, I apologize, but the number is 7694590. Somebody just asked on the live video if that is the correct number. No, it is not. So it just changed. We have less than 10 minutes. So if you want to get in your call really quickly, please feel free to call me. I do apologize for that. That 6 is actually supposed to be a 9. Sorry, Natalia, you go ahead.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
I was
if
saying
I'm
that
the first one,
so sorry.
go ahead.
Yeah, I was saying that I stand with you and I call for the government as well to do the right thing. But sometimes you can't expect from people to give what they don't have. The easiest thing for them to do would have to walk their communities and make sure everybody was okay, to make sure people had food, etc., etc. They could not even do that. So
So
let's see
I jump. I take
where
in a jump.
All right, I'm
definitely,
going to take a
you know,
call,
let's see
ladies.
where it will
I'm
go.
about to take a call. Hello, good morning. You are live on Pep Talk.
Yes, good morning to the panel.
Good
How are you all
morning.
doing?
Good
We are
morning.
good this Friday.
I am looking at the young lady that is making the request to have members of parliament do an adjustment in salary. What is critical in that area? What is the sense they do an adjustment in salary when they will take it plenty times more on the other side?
You want us to answer that offline?
I don't really need an answer.
I think that was more of a statement. Thank you very much, Paula, for that.
You're welcome.
Exactly.
Somebody on the live video actually said that don't hold your breath, darling. And I have to agree. We really can't hold our breath with this government in terms of offering to do something that may benefit the citizens more than them. And that is what basically we're asking them to do with regards to taking and offering to take a pay cut. It's asking them to put the citizens first, which we have seen time and time again is something that they are not very focused on doing. And just like the caller said, we are asking this of a government who we've seen abuse, and when I say abuse, yes, abuse their privileges in terms of their responsibility to us as citizens. I mean, I would always, always, always talk about this because just yesterday I drove past the Red House, which looks like it's collecting cobwebs and dust. A red house that we opened less than 2 months ago that now stands as a monument, an empty monument, and a testament of the money that we had and could have spent towards this crisis situation that we are facing right now. And when I say we can't expect a salary cut or an offer to take a salary cut from a government that had no problem with spending $500 million on vanity projects, whereas we have people living in shacks like we saw on that video. I mean, how do the two add up? Where's the national pride when you look at
Yeah.
things like that? No, where is that pride? Somebody joked that people who's play mass this year, I wonder if you're looking at your $10,000 carnival costume and wishing that you could convert it to food. And it's a funny thing to say, but in relation to the money that we would have spent as a country, where is that money now in relation to the people who actually and really need it in our society?
Indeed, and we, as a people, we need to have more pride in ourselves. We have to believe that we deserve better because I'm seeing people going on and on and on about great is the PNM, and I'm like, compared to what? What really is the bar? Who are you comparing it to? Who are you comparing it to when some people still don't have water in the taps? What are you comparing it to? What is great? We have no pride whatsoever. It's so embarrassing.
We have
Indeed.
a
And I
fake
just
sense
missed
of national pride.
another call. So if you would like to call in really quickly and just we have 3 minutes left, we will take your call in this last 3 minutes. But while we wait to see if this caller would call back, I would give Natalia and Hadassah an opportunity to give their closing remarks for the program. Natalia, you go first.
It was honestly a pleasure being here, and my closing remarks will be this. Trinidad and Tobago, as you watch me on this episode of Plain Talk, Pep Talks in the Morning, that's it, right? Pep Talks in the
Yeah.
Morning. I want you to know that Trinidad and Tobago, it's your country. And I heard Philip said this once, and I'm going to say it. If this ship sinks, whether you wear a yellow, red, or orange t-shirt, if you do not make a change, you are going with that ship and you will sink as well. And you might take that for granted, but when you see them flying out in the private jet, that's when you have to look up and say, wow. It's okay. In this time, it's okay to be angry. It's okay to be frustrated. It's okay to even be sad. You're human at the end of the day. But change is inevitable. I think I hope I said that correctly. Change is something that must come about. And you must look at yourself and reflect and think and really think, am I really going to put up with this for the next 5 years? Am I really going to watch maybe another COVID-19, another pandemic come and suffer through this situation again? Am I going to continue to be abused by the same people who I put to govern my beloved nation, to help improve the lives of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago? There comes a time when you need to self-reflect and to think more about the entire country than just, I have $500, I could pay that corrupt official off. It's time to think about one people under one flag, about everybody, our Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia. Hadassah.
All right. Well, we are living in unprecedented times, and in the absence of a government who is really taking care of the people and looking out for us, let us be our brother's keeper. Let us look out for each other. Let us take care of each other, and let us come through this storm. Um, Other than that, we also have to start to think about the persons right now who are hungry, who are starving, who are in terrible situations, who are being abused, and really think about if we could survive another 5 years of what we have had to endure, and let us think about making better choices when you roll around. That's it.
Well said, Hadassah and Natalia. And it's 10 o'clock. We have near the end of our program. I'd like to thank you ladies both for coming on. I believe this is my first all female panel for the week. This week, actually, I wanted to do an all female panel, but I did not have that opportunity. Lima McLeod Wilkinson, our DPL, one of our two DPLs, she had to go back to work. So I missed being able to mix and match her with the panel that we had this week. However, this was a very great week for the pep talks in the morning. If you notice, my connection seems to be better. I have switched to a different device, so fingers crossed that it lasts this way for the duration of this online program that we continue. It's Friday. We've reached the end of another week, and I would like to tell you have a great weekend ahead. Join us back on Monday for that program that we would have missed yesterday with our deputy party organizer and our party organizer, Michelle Davis and Sharon Wilson. We are going to discuss the state of the economy as well as any hot button issues that would have popped up over the weekend in our weekly wrap up, our weekend wrap up, which we now have on a Monday. So Trinidad and Tobago and anywhere, well, wherever you are in the world viewing this program, thank you very much for sticking with us. And remember, during this period of social distancing, isolation, and quarantine, let's stay together by staying apart. Have a great weekend ahead. Bye bye.
Bye,
Bye.
everybody.